Hello everyone and welcome to ENG-007, which is our valve. There is a quantity of 2 of these in each of our assemblies. These are the valves that will allow your intake of your fuel and the exhaust of the combustion process into and the engine. Um, Now, looking at this, I'm not saying it can't be made out of metal, but this looks a lot more like what I would think of a part for a lathe would be, which is exactly what we're going to do today. So we're going to learn how to set up and run a lathe program. It should be pretty quick and easy. Really, just once you get your tools orientated properly, things should fly pretty well. So that being said, let's get to it. So you can download the file and open up MasterCAM just as you normally would. First thing to do is open up our part. Which I don't actually believe I even downloaded yet. So let me go to export. I probably did. Oh, I did. Yeah. Okay. My bad. File open. Browse to Demic 436. Here it is. Okay. I will say that for a lathe part, this is a pretty small part. I'm not too optimistic about how the finish we're going to get is based on it's not like you can't do it. It's just the machine that we have at the college isn't best for smaller parts. So we'll see. But we'll run it as if we'll have no issues when it comes to chatter on our machine. It is a 0.1875 diameter here, and it sticks out more than 4 times the diameter, so could be an issue, definitely. And typically, I would expect that to become an issue. So, looking at this, we're going to go to our machine, and we're going to select lathe default for our machine. We can go to our files, we can save this as ENG-007, which is our valve. Call this 4367. We can go to our stock setup. We will be working with a left spindle, so make sure that's checked off. We don't really set the properties of the spindle. You could, but for today we'll just, oh, that's our stock, sorry, our stock properties, we will. You could set the properties of your spindle, sorry, of your chuck to draw out kind of what it looks like, which it looks like it has something here already, so we don't have to worry about that. Our stock for our part will be, well, let's take a look. Let's go to our Fusion file and let's see what the outer diameter is. This is a 0.387, so we'll probably start with 1/2 inch stock. 0.5, the length that being is going to be, well, we need 1.009, so let's just say we have, it doesn't really matter, 2 inches of stock. Now, in reality, would you have 2 inches? No, you'd probably have a big bar. You just keep feeding in like a 6-inch, 12-inch bar that you could feed in and get 10 parts out of, let's say. Um, but for today, this will work. It doesn't matter if my stock's being aligned where I am. Yeah, so like I was saying, the length of the stock doesn't matter because some of it's just going to be in the chuck anyway, so you got to accommodate for a little bit of stock there. Position along axis, well, do we want, okay, let's come back to that if we want that. Okay, so let's just hit OK for now. And let's hit OK. And we can see that we're running a couple issues that our stock's being made, but our parts over here, that's fine. We got to align things. So first thing I want you guys to do is I want you to go over to your planes tab, and I want to select your D plus Z plus plane. Hit the red equal sign to go to that plane. That's my favorite plane to use while I am working on my machine. Now, to orientate myself, I always want to make sure that the D plus is facing me. I'm always looking at the D, So that should be facing me, and my Z should be pointing out to the right. Okay. So I'm going to want my D plus facing me and my Z to the facing right. So whenever you're working in here, always make sure the D is facing towards you, the Z's to the right. Sometimes you might get misorientated, and that's my general way of lining things back up. From there, we're going to want to align our part to our stock. So let's go to our lathe turning and go to align to Z. And you're going to select the front of the part. So this is going to be my front of my part right here. It'll do a weird movement. That's fine. And I'm just going to hit OK. And that should align my part nicely. Like I said, make sure the D faces you and the Z's pointing to the right. So now my front of my part is aligned where my Z0 is. I know that it's kind of weird. Remember that the lathe is working with kind of like your Y and your Z, right? But sorry, your X and your Z. The axes are kind of always thrown around. So in the end, the Z stays Z. The D becomes an X, which I believe they set it as D as diameter. So just remember that, your X and Z. Okay. That's aligned. I do want to leave a little bit of material for facing. So let me go back to my stock setup and let's go to, well, my stock plane, does that matter? That does matter. Let's go stock properties, and where is my use margins? That's where I'm looking for. Okay, so right margin, we're gonna add a right margin. Let's do 50 thou, typically a good amount to face off your part. I mean, 20 thou would also be good. Maybe for us, let's do 20 thou today. So let's go back to that. Okay, you can see that add stock in front of there. Okay, that's the first step, is getting your stock orientated. Now when you go to machine, couple options. If you are using wireframe to select your tools, which a lot of times I do, so I'm going to show you this, but you could do solid selection as well, which I'll show you. But let's pretend we're doing my wireframe, so maybe I'll just make a new level called wireframe, or sometimes in my lathe I'll call this profile. Because it's really just a profile of my part. If I go to wireframe, I can do what they call a turn profile. If I hit this, it'll show me what my part looks like if it was being turned. So I can turn off my original part, and that's what my part looks like in the rotary, right? So I'm going to be able to use these lines as my selection points. To be honest, whenever I do lathe, I don't even like the solid model being on all the time. I just like seeing these lines sometimes. It's up to you if what you like to see. We can go right into it. So we are going to be doing a facing, a roughing, and a finish, and then a part off. So very simple stuff today. We'll just start with a face. When you do a face, all you got to do is really just don't have to select anything actually. You'll tell it where to face off at. I'm going to see this. This might work and it might not. I'm going to give you a warning right off the bat. That's OD rough right, 80 degree. We are using right hand tools. Sometimes though I've run into issues. For a feed rate, for roughing, let's do this. Let's go to I've been trying to introduce you guys to figure out your speeds and feeds for you guys. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to this site called Machining Doctor. I like this site. And this is where I get my general speeds and feeds for aluminum. I don't really need this, but when I start doing some more advanced steels, this is a great place to go. I like their Speed Doctor calculator. and we're gonna select some stuff here. So we're gonna go turning. We're gonna be turning aluminum. We're gonna be using machining 6061. Max RPM on this machine is 3000 RPM. Workpiece diameter is going to be 0.5 inches. Don't worry about max horsepower, all the other stuff. We are going to be using a C, which is an 80-degree insert. The corner radius, I'm not really exactly sure what our corner radius is going to be, but let's just guess it's about 15 thou. The size is fine, that's fine. Everything else here is good. And just get cutting data and see what they recommend. They recommend a SFM of 390 and a feeder of 6 thou, or inch per rev. Just know that your inch per rev is different than inches per minute, right? Whenever you're using lathe, inch per rev is typically what we'll use for a lot of tool paths. Just easier to dial in for speeds and feeds. So I'm going to select CSS, which is the same as SFM, and that is supposed to be based off this 390. Okay. And my feed rate was 6 thou inch per rev. Make sure to click off inch per rev or inch per minute. Using tool number 1, we'll leave everything, the tool change position, facing parameters. We don't need a finish step over. We're just going to be doing one roughing cut. We will be finishing the Z at 0, so that's where we're going to be cutting at. If that wasn't 0, you could select by clicking this. Rough step over, overcut. Don't worry about overcut. Retract 0.1. Stock to leave is going to be 0. We shouldn't have to worry about lead in, lead out. Compensation direction. I like to turn on where. Left. We'll leave that on for now and see what happens here, okay? And look at that. Right off the bat, we ended up with a good toolpath. Nice and easy. My cutter looks like it's doing the right thing. Now there's no holder on that. Why is there no holder there? Is that because I have holder turned off? Probably. There we go. Beautiful. Not much to change. Lathe, guys, is actually very easy, in my opinion. For my rough, we're just going to select my wireframe of my exterior profile. So I'm going to start from one end, and then I like to go to the other side and click shift click just to select the entire chain. Up to this point, I want to go past that and hit OK. We'll stick with the 6 thou, and we'll stick with the, what was it, 360 SFM? 390? And I should have also changed this because I don't think I did the last one. Max mill speed is 3000. Now, because I set my SFM to 390, that was already calculating based off the fact you can't go more than 3000, so it wouldn't have spun it more than 3000 anyways. Rough parameters, depth of cut, I like 0.1. Stock to leave in wall, or X and Y, and Z doesn't matter. Stock to leave in X, let's do 10 thou. We'll do a 10 thou finishing pass. We'll turn it on where, lead in, lead out. That's fine. We'll see how that looks in the end. Tool comes in, cuts. Now, sometimes it looks like the tool isn't touching your workpiece. It is in reality, so don't really worry about that. It's a little bit weird. I don't like it ends there, so I'd actually like my tool probably go a little bit further once it's done the cut here. So what I might want to do is actually give it a line, which is going to be the thickness of my parting tool, which I believe, I'm not sure exactly what my parting tool size is, but let's assume that Chris has a 3mm parting tool. So let's do 3 divided by 25.4, 0.1181, this direction, just like so. That way, let's just rechain it. start from here and go to here. That way, I just want to go past, and typically I like to cut where my parting tool, I guess it doesn't matter. I like to go past a little bit though. And then sometimes I'd cut and then also cut the amount that my parting tool is going to be cutting, just to give it a nice flat surface to start the parting on. So as you can see now, it cuts that extra little bit. And then we'll just do a turning finish, and we will select the exact same chain, and same thing, 390. I mean, we could slow down the inch per rev probably a little bit, not too much. Let's do 5,000. Well, let's try 2,000 per rev. Finish step over 0.100 where. Okay. Very nice. Like I said, don't worry if the lines look like they're inside of stuff. It's a little bit weird on the lathe. And lastly, we just got to do a part. So do a cutoff operation. When you do the cutoff, you just got to select something on the back edge that you want to cut. The best thing to do is to select the outer exterior diameter, in my opinion, the point there. So select it there. We're going to use a left group. We're looking for OD cutoff right, 0.125. Sure, that's fine. Those speeds and feeds are probably fine, but hey, let's do this again if we want. We can go back to the beginning. It could be parting aluminum. Sure, 0.15, that's fine to me. 1160 SFM, 5,000. Being much more aggressive than I was going to be. That works. And hit OK. And I mean, the angle, the insert's angled, which technically ours isn't, but in the end, it would still do the same thing. Cuts in, comes back out, and backs out. And guess what, guys? You just finished your part. If we want to see what that would look like, we can do a machine verification. It's a very simple part for the lathe, so you guys have an easy week this week. Bam, bam. Beautiful. That extra stock there that got machined away will get faced off in the next op anyways, or the next part. Super easy part. I guess we didn't really set our tool numbers. I'll set those later on. You'd have to double click on them. I don't like how their tool management system is. Like normally the way we do it is it just show you the tools that all the tools you've used in the program, but Lathe shows you all the tools available. It just checks off one of them. I don't love that, to be honest. I think it's a little bit messy, but you can double click on these and make sure that they are the parameters, the tool numbers. I'm going to go change these, but you should change them all. The tool number, specifically the tool number and the offset number on the machine. But for today, we'll just leave it just because I got to figure out what tool numbers Chris uses on his CNC machine so I can align my tools up, because we typically keep our tool numbers the same depending on the type of tool we're using. That being said, we can make a setup sheet very quickly. So I'll just go to here. Really, I'm not going to put the tool numbers yet. I'll just keep that blank. The first one is an 80-degree, and the second tool is a, you can just say 80-degree, know what it means. Second tool will be a, whatever, I said it was a 3mm part, but I'll change it depending on what we have. Parting tool. Stock size is 0.5 inch round. 661, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I add some other stuff like how long to cut the bars to. Op 1 offsets, I'll tell you guys that we don't need any of this. It's a bit different the way we set up everything, but I will add some comments saying I have a different sheet for lathe typically. So my part is 1 inch long. We're parting, let's say, we don't want to stick our part too far out. So I bet you if we do 1.25 inches, so we'll say extend part 1.25 inches out of chuck. Face 0.02 inches off, and 0 all tools. To you'll see what I mean. When we put our tools in, we don't actually really set a G54. Obviously, the center of the machine stays the same. The only thing that you would change is where the Z0 is. And instead of setting a Z0 and then setting the tool lengths, we simply just bring our tools up after we put them in the machine and tell it exactly where the front face is. It's a little bit confusing in a way, but I guess we could have moved this to here. Doesn't really matter. Leave it like that. We'll save this as valve. And we should have a fun time next week learning how to set up the lathe machine. So I'm going to save this as browse. And there we go. Awesome, guys. That is it for this class. Easy one today. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you have fun learning the lathe. If you want to learn more, feel free to watch Titan CNC on their videos. If not, in future classes, we will go into it a bit further. So I will see you guys in the next part.